alternative forms of taxation as well. We put forward our arguments about land value taxation to prevent the developers speculating on land. We put forward our argument, which is now internationally accepted by most economists, progressive economists, for the Robin Hood tax, used to be called the Tobin tax, a tiny taxation on speculators' profits, which would not only fund our own services, but actually would assist in tackling third world and developing world poverty itself. We also wanted to look at how we brought together, if you like, the discussions about how we prevent this ever happening again. Because what I don't want to do is get rid of this government, end this crisis, and then the next generation, within 15 or 25 years, whether you believe in Kondratyev's cycles or not, we're facing exactly the same crisis. So the point that was made here. What we need to do now is have a more fundamental discussion about how do we achieve, well, Kinnock once in the 80s also went off and said to Vernon Crick, how do you define socialism? And Crick came back and said, well, he wrote a book, Vernon Crick came back and said, well, actually, very simply, what socialism is all about is the achievement of equality through democracy. So what we should be doing now is saying, look, how do we test every institution within our society about do they achieve equality through democracy? Are they democratic, and do they actually achieve the objectives of a more equal society? And so the wider debate that we have now in this campaign isn't just about how we tackle this economic crisis, it's how do we transform our society in such a way it never happens again. And then the only way to do that is to make it more democratic and to make it more equal. So it's testing every institution, every policy that's made on those criteria. That's the debate that we need to have, not just within our individual political parties, but also across our movement overall and within our communities, exactly as Philip has said. How do we take democratic control of our communities at every level to make sure they're more equal, and by controlling them, never allowing this economic crisis to hit us again? I think that's where we're at. So how do we bring it about? My view now is very, very clear, exactly as I said before. We have a responsibility. There was a war criminal, a British war criminal, only a couple of years ago said the hand of history was on his shoulder. I think the hand of history is on all of our shoulders now. It's about how do we bring this government down as rapidly as we possibly can. And everyone makes a contribution towards that. And I think it will be as a result of building up a cumulative process of resistance, small acts of resistance building up into a climate where this government can no longer hold power. And I think it comes in a number of ways. In terms of industrial action, of course, I chair a number of trade union groups in Parliament, and I coordinate and assist as best I can and bring them together in their parliamentary campaigns, but also in encouraging the discussion amongst unions about the individual struggles that they have to take place. If you look now, union by union, individual struggles are happening. They're happening against cuts, they're happening against privatisation, and they're also happening against harassment and bullying of their members, because don't underestimate the abilities of employers, particularly in the public sector at the moment, to seek to take out a whole layer of activists on trumped-up charges, disciplinary actions and all the rest, and that's going on apace right the way across the piece. So what we're trying to do is say to individual unions, if you have a struggle, listen to your members, mobilise them effectively, and that has to result in not just in campaigning on the streets, but also industrial action. But isn't it better if we're taking industrial action that we take it together? And the role of the TUC is to coordinate that action. Now, I'm an ex-TUC bureaucrat, so I'm trained in the art of mobilising campaigns and demonstrations where no one turns up, public meetings which are never heard of by the mass media and all that. And the TUC, unfortunately, has been a dead hand on activity for a long period of time. So a number of unions now are actually saying the TUC has to play this role now of not just encouraging negotiation issue by issue as best we can, but also when negotiations break down, supporting individual unions in their individual industrial action campaigns, but also wherever possible, coordinating that. And that's what's happening. That debate has happened within the TUC. But also what we've done is not to split the TUC, but what we've done also is to ensure that there is the opportunity of coordination, and if the TUC fails to do that, we've established a group called the Trade Union Coordinating Group. It consists of 10 unions representing about 1 million workers, again, who meet on a regular basis to coordinate their parliamentary lobbying campaigns, but also now meeting to coordinate their industrial action. And I think it's an amazing breakthrough that we've got 4 unions now 3 of them from the TUCG, actually saying, yes, we'll coordinate our industrial action for June the 30th. And I know that other unions now are looking to do exactly the same. So that when we come out together. And we come out because I think one spark of an action like that will give encouragement right the way across the whole of the labour and trade union movement to say, actually, there's large numbers of people willing to stand up and fight, and therefore you should do so as well. Because I think union by union now, rank and file members are willing to take that action. And we're finding the enthusiasm that's been built up in unions like PCS is infecting other unions as well. I hear last week that, for example, in Unite, the health workers are demanding a ballot on industrial action. I'm a member of Unison. I regularly get threatened with expulsion, but there you are. Again, even within Unison now, particularly in health and local government, people are saying enough's enough and we need to start fighting back. So the trade union bureaucracies that are not responsive, I think are now being pushed aside by the rank and file workers themselves. I think that's going to be the key to bringing this government down. But there are other aspects of the campaign that we have to link up to as well. And I just say this, I don't believe anymore that people will be constrained by the law because the situation is so serious. And the POA now that no longer has the right to strike, and the last government unfortunately never returned it to it, and I think that was an act of betrayal, but nevertheless no longer have the right. They're currently balloting their members for industrial action. Now, because I work with the POA, I'm an honorary life member of the Prison Officers Association. I never thought I'd be the voice of the screws in Parliament, but there you are. But they're incredibly progressive union, progressive leadership. They're balloting their members now. And some of you may know this, because a couple of years ago when they did take industrial action, back in August, they just walked out. Some of you know I got a phone call in the morning from the POA just to say, look, phone Jack Straw, because he was Home Secretary then, you better tell him we'd come out. So we did. We phoned Straw's office, and they said, well, it's illegal. I thought, well, who's going to lock them up? And it's a demonstration of what can be done. And the Lindsay Oil workers did exactly the same thing. The law becomes immaterial when people are angry and they feel they're defending a higher law, which is their trade union rights and their human rights. But that goes on apace, and I just finish on this. It isn't just about the trade unions and the labour movement as well. What we've discovered is a new social movement that's developed. We're rebuilding ourselves in the labour and trade union movement as a social movement anywhere. Rank and file members taking creative action and all the rest of it. But we're linking up with people who've never been involved in the labour and trade union movement, who are concerned about particular campaigns. And UK Uncut is a good example. But that's breaking out all over. But at the same time, there is a reaction from the state. And we saw it this week. In my constituency, some of you may know, we've been campaigning against the third runway, very similar to this incinerator campaign down here on a rank and file campaign, and we've undertaken occupations. And one of the groups is a group of environmentalists, young people who've taken over a derelict piece of land, which would have been in the village that would be destroyed by the third runway, and they transformed it from a derelict piece of land into a market garden for the enjoyment of the community in the long term. A fantastic, wonderful enterprise. 45 police officers turned up. They were supposed to be meeting me Thursday morning. 45 police officers turned up on their site, broke their way in, handcuffed them, and locked them into a porter cabin on the site while they searched the site itself for materials that could cause criminal damage. And so what does that mean? Paint. So actually, there's a watercolour section here that they use for the kids. Is that what you're looking for? It was extraordinary. Chris Knight, 67-year-old professor of social anthropology, an old mate of mine, that organised a street theatre event for as the alternative to Royal Wedding. Admittedly, it was slightly over the top. He erected a guillotine to behead referees. Gets arrested before he's even set off from his home. And they said, what is this? It's a pre-crime. A pre-crime. So people are demonstrating, are willing to demonstrate. And as I said before, the young people led the way. That NUS demonstration with the UCU, where over 20,000 people were expected, 50,000 turned up. Yes, a number of people did have an attack at Millbank, got carried away and all the rest of it. But again, the young people that were arrested there, Wilbur in particular, has been given 3-year sentence. For, yes, it was a wrong thing to do to drop that fire extinguisher, but 3 years at that age. And again, time and time again now, people are being made examples of by the courts completely, I think, unnecessarily and in a way which has an impact an attack on human rights. I think all of those people now, despite all of that attack by the state, are still going to come out and campaign, are still going to come out and do their bit in this cumulative process of building resistance. And I think that's what's going to happen in this coming period. That individually, we all have to examine our consciences about what role we play, what contribution can we make. Then through our organisations in the labour and trade union movement, how can we make sure they're mobilised effectively? And then through our wider social movements and individual campaigns to recognise, in the phrases of Cameron, yes, we are all in this together. We're all in this together against the bastards. That's what we're about. We are all in this together. And that our mobilisation now has got to be, yes, effective, it's got to be mobilised, I think, with the labour and trade union movement leading it. It's got to be done in solidarity right the way across the communities. But it's got to be done with a sense of urgency. And the urgency is about, we've got to bring this government down. That's all I